So I'm going to talk to you about my experience on the BFI Film Academy. In the beginning of this year, I was part of a group of young people who took part in this 5-week course, supported by Screen South and the BFI. We made 2 short films on the course. We were split into 2 separate teams, and we worked in separate productions as groups. Both Joanna and I were assigned the role of director of photography on our respective productions. A director of photography is in charge of the lighting and camera work of the film. So sometimes they're operating the camera, but there would always be, particularly on larger productions, that's often someone else's responsibility as part of a larger team. They work closely with the director to kind of communicate the director's intentions for how the film should look visually. And sometimes this involves working within strict guidelines if the director knows a lot themselves about cinematography, but sometimes they are given more creative freedom and the director will give them more of an idea of what they want, and then they're free to achieve that with their technical know-how.
Director of photography, as I mentioned before, also helps with the camera operating, and they have to work closely with the director to achieve the desired shots, but it's not always as easy to get the shots the director wants, because you have to rely on the budget of the film. If you wanted crane shots or helicopter shots, you have to know your budget, and you won't always be able to afford it.
So this shows some examples of how lighting has been used. The lighting on the top right, you can see an example of the equipment that we have access to, and this allowed us to sort of light things in a professional way. On the far right, you can see a light that's often used with a filter over it, which makes the light a lot less harsh. You can see that sometimes light in a film comes from sources that are on screen, which can be seen in the bottom right in a still from The Prestige. And it's also used to kind of show the atmosphere of the scene. And there's a still from Skyfall at the top, and the scene is almost completely dark, and there's just enough light on Daniel Craig's face to reveal it as being him, the character of James Bond, and it helps kind of show that the scene is somewhat dangerous. There's also a still from a film called Memento, and because the scene is quite well lit, it kind of communicates that it's more safe and it's not such a tense scene as such. With the lighting, it's quite important to operate safely, especially when they can create quite a lot of heat, and the cables can be trip hazards, so you need to be organised to make sure that people are operating as safely as possible. Camera operating, this camera in the bottom middle is the camera that we were using on our films. It's a Sony EX3. It's a digital camera, meaning that it shoots onto a memory card rather than the more traditional film.
There are lots of different ways that you can get shots, such as handheld, or you can use a tripod. And it's also from working on the film with BFI, I learned that you had to be really precise even when setting up the equipment, such as using a tripod. If you don't level it right with the spirit level, then the shot that you film will be wonky and it won't be right.
The thing on the bottom right is a Steadicam rig, which is used when a cameraman has to move around a lot with the camera, and it uses weights to keep the camera stable to make it less shaky. You can see a spirit level at the top, and that's often used on tripods to make sure that a shot is level with the horizon, meaning that you're not getting weirdly angled shots. That's not what you're intending. We each looked at a professional that inspired us, and my one was Wally Pfister. He has worked a lot with the director Christopher Nolan on almost all of his films, including the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, Memento, and The Prestige. I like his work because I think he's quite inventive in the way he shoots things, and I like the way things are shown. Particularly in that Inception poster, it's showing a scene, if you've seen the film, where a corridor actually spins and the gravity within it is affected. And they actually achieve this by building a whole set that they can spin around, and they affix the camera to the floor. So what you actually saw on screen wasn't a spinning corridor. The corridor looked fixed, but you saw the effects of gravity, meaning that the characters ended up on the wall as if it was the floor and that sort of thing. I feel that was quite a different way to show it rather than just spinning the whole scene on screen.
As a fan of the Tarantino films, I looked at the cinematographer and found out he was Robert Richardson, and he's also worked closely with Martin Scorsese on many of his films, such as Hugo. I think he's an inspiring cinematographer because the way that he uses the camera angles and the speed of his shots fits into and exaggerates the narratives of the films. Like when he's shooting a fighting scene, the camera shots are usually quick and flashy instead of slow, so that the audience know more about the film.
So we learned a lot from the experience on the BFI Film Academy, particularly that you learn a lot from actually doing things. So it's kind of the best way to develop your skills, and then you can apply that. Even if what you end up with isn't necessarily what you intended, you definitely develop skills that you can apply to something later on. In addition to that, you can learn from your mistakes, and again, kind of apply what you've learned to future things to make anything you make in the future better.
I learned about how many different aspects there were to it. I used to think that it was just camera quoting, but when I found out it was also to do with lighting and all of that, then I found it more interesting, and it gives you more to do and more to learn.
On the day, when you were doing the actual shoot?
Trying to not fit too much into a space of time, because you might end up realising that you're really short of time. I mean, we made it work, but it can be tricky to know how much time to allow for stuff. And I think just to allow a lot of time for everything, if possible. Yeah.
What's your favourite film and why?
My favourite film ever. This changes a lot, but I probably think this is probably Inception, particularly because I think almost because it was one of these big blockbuster films that wasn't like a superhero film or a sequel or already some big known thing. It was its own original thing, and the fact that it was successful and in being its own thing was cool to me, and I liked it in itself as a film because I thought it was really inventive in the story and just the way it was told visually, and lots of good use of practical effects.
Cool.
Anything else?
Where would you like to see yourself in, say, 10 years' time?
I don't know. I guess I'd like to work in the film industry in some capacity. I'm quite interested in the sort of camera department and where that goes, but I'm not sure where it's going to take me. I'll see where I am. I'm not really sure.
Do you know, if you want to go to camera, do you know how to do it, you know, where you would go to find what your next step would be?
Kinda. I mean, I
What
guess
would it be?
to just try to work in low level positions that are assisting on that sort of thing, and then you can learn from that, and then on smaller things, like I think sort of work my way up, I guess. But there will probably be training involved. It's possibly the sort of thing you can learn on a degree, but it doesn't necessarily have to be more work-based learning, I suppose.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
How was it like getting the chance to work with professional really quickly?
Yeah, that was really cool because obviously, like, the expense of it is usually a barrier to being able to do so. But yeah, being able to do that, it made it feel a lot more real in a sense of because you're using this professional equipment. I mean, it's not like I don't think you need professional equipment to make something good, but just having the access to it did help in maybe like achieving what we were trying to do.